Day 3, we are working on opening up some things. We are going to get right into it by starting with supported fish. So, man, these 20 minutes go fast. If you had told me we'd hold all of these poses, I would have thought it would have taken forever. So I'm trying to not waste too much time, stick to those 20 minutes in case you guys have other things you're off to. You can grab parts of your couch, pillows from your bed. If you were seated, you were going to bring it right up to the sacrum, right? Your low back, and then roll over it. Now, Pamela could have taken the bolster the longer way, meaning you don't have to do it. Meaning there's a deeper opening for the heart and throat, but that's a little more intense, and we're trying to shy away from the intensity today so that you can relax. So one option is this. It's going to be a little bit different for each of us, but notice sometimes you come in and we start to hold. It's not really what we're going for today. So you can pick whatever one is more comfortable and soothing. That's hard to choose, right? We think of yoga as this really active practice. The beautiful part about yin, and really the way you're placing yourself in the body and how yoga works, is that you get those benefits. Whether you're doing the more what we consider active, right, muscularly active version, or the yin version, restorative version, they just have different energies. So please, oh please, don't feel like you're doing any less. You might actually be doing yourself a bigger service, right? Our bodies might respond better to one approach or the other, and that'll change every day, right? So paying attention to how these are landing in the body. Forget about what you're doing, how you're doing it. Just like a regular class, it's all about when you get to Shavasana. So maybe in here it's about how you feel at the end. Maybe it's about how you're sleeping at night, how you're taking care of yourself during the day. But just like your regular practice, still landing, feeling the support from your breath, feeling the support from the floor, your bolster, or whatever version of it you're using, and starting to breathe a little deeper. All right, today's focus is a little bit on the stomach and spleen meridian and your bladder and kidney meridian. Now your kidney, think about sort of hydration, filtration. It filters something like upwards of 180 liters of blood a day. Mind-boggling. It's associated with both fear and wisdom. But if we're a little bit out of balance, we tend to slide towards the fear side, right? It shows up as anxiety. Right? We might be fearful of trust, a lack of trust in ourselves and other people and other things. We might be more possessive, right? We might be less willing to let go of certain things. So really letting go. It doesn't need to be specific. Start with the physical body. Soft shoulders, soft jaws again. Soften even your tongue. It is incredibly hard to be engaged in any of your facial muscles, but certainly your jaw. If you're softening your tongue, soften your eyes, soften the brow. And certainly anywhere else you're tending to carry tension today. Slowing down. Trying to create less work, less stress in the body so all of our systems can operate a little more efficiently, right? Particularly today, tapping into the stomach, spleen, bladder and kidney. Which both do a lot of detoxing. Your stomach feeds the entire body. Think about the nourishment you put in. We nourish ourselves in many ways, not just with food, right? But the people we surround ourselves with, things we do all day, the music we listen to, the news we listen to, the people we listen to, our breath. Are you not breathing? Maybe you could give your breath a little more energy. It could be grounding, soothing, something more uplifting, right? A bit of an experiment as we move through. As you ever so gently start to maybe reach prayer palms out in front of you, maybe tuck the chin, engage your belly just a little bit to get yourself to seated. You can keep your buns where they are. We're going to just turn a little onto your right hip to set up deer. You may remember from day one, it's similar to your half pigeon with the front leg, and then just tuck your left heel behind you. And the bolster is right up next to you, but you're going to turn it the tallish way. As you press both hands down, you're going to lift your bum a little bit and kind of fold over it. You want to kind of get the bolster or whatever you have between the low ribs and the hips. It's going to feel a little awkward. You might feel some pressure happening in the belly or weird spaces on the back side of the ribs. That's okay. Be gentle. Maybe you don't have to start the taller way with the bolster. You kind of lean over it. Left arm is extending over the head. Big stretch. Somewhere that lets you kind of melt in. I demonstrated this earlier for Pamela, and I required a block or something underneath my head. It was a bit tight in all of the spaces. It looked more like a 2x4 balancing over a stone or something. So if you are feeling the same way, gather up all the props and support yourself in this space. You're going to want to breathe deeply. Big, long breaths in, even belly breathing, and then make sure you're really sinking on the exhales. We're not rinsing out Ujjayi breath. We are melting, following gravity, releasing as much tension as we can from the body, like draining the brain. Trusting the body to do what it needs, trusting that we don't need to guide it in any way from the brain, or at least the conscious brain. Trusting that you don't need to be anywhere else doing anything else but taking care of yourself right here, right now. Those thoughts and feelings might come up, and that's okay. Right? Remember, we want fluid energy. We're trying to get rid of any blockages, so that kind of starts with the breath. It starts with tapping into stretching out the body, stretching, tapping into all of the fascia we talked about. This is about connective tissue, ligaments and tendons, not necessarily all muscular. We need to work through those masses to get to the bits and goodies, of course. Hence why we are here for a good 3 to 5 minutes in these poses. In some cases, a little bit longer, but certainly if this is your entry to the yin practice, then stick with a little dab will do you. Less is often plenty in this case. Soft jaws, heavy heads. Really doesn't matter where you're falling. You could be a nice hot mess on the floor. That's okay. You might be releasing into tears. That's okay. That's actually quite beneficial. We have different kinds of tears. Something in my brain is saying basal tears, like the plant. But I think it's BASAL or something. I think those are the particular tears that release stress from the body, some chemical reaction. So let them roll. They don't have to mean anything. Don't have to be specific responses to anything. Just might feel good, and that's the whole purpose of them. And of course, they might be called something else. So you gotta, again, this is all by research over the years, interests of mine. So, you know, I apologize for any inaccuracies, but point is, feels good to cry, go for it. Slowly. Maybe you're reaching the left arm first, slowly tucking the chin and moving the head as you rise yourself up through seated. You can take the bolster on the other side, swap the legs, whatever way is easiest. Yeah, slow and steady. Poof up your little bolster. Take it the right taller way. We're gonna put it right up against us. Plant both palms, lift your hips a little. You're gonna stretch your torso, the side of it over, so you can kind of press in between the ribs and the hips. Yeah. Ooh. And stretch out, reach out over with that top arm into space. Yeah. Right. Normally, if you're massaging some of the acupressure for your kidneys, right, your low back, kind of where your QLs are, between the hips and your low ribs, but we're going to get them from all angles, and we'll do a little bit of acupressure as well. So no worries, not here. You get a little bit of that coming from the bolster. Right, but just kind of doing that inventory, letting your mind wander. You might be following your breath or sensation. Filling up, trying to take really deep breaths. Expand the belly, expand the ribs, as awkward as that might feel, with a little bit of pressure on your internal organs, and then let yourself really sink in. You might pause a couple of breaths, not actual breaths, moments before you take the next breath in. Right, your bladder is the yang energy, downward moving energy. Kidney is the yin meridian of this pair, moving upward. Maybe you're starting to pair these concepts, sensations, little investigations here with some breath. And similarly, stomach and spleen meridian are, stomach is yang, right? Downward moving, sort of makes sense. And spleen is your yin. Energy is moving upward. Remember, these are very similar to your chakras, your nadis, energy systems, your prana in yoga, or chi in Chinese medicine. So again, all about energy. It's really all we are, all we're made of. And if you need a little bit more of it, right, sometimes we got to move, free up the body. Things can be a little stuck. Sometimes you can do that with breath. So you could add something more soothing, grounding, more energetic, right? You're working with whatever's happening in your own body. So paying attention to that. 5, 4. And making any adjustments that you need. If it feels good to close your eyes, let your arms melt anywhere that allows you to release a little bit deeper here, then great. Paying attention to your low back, your sacrum, the hips. Anywhere you're holding any small amount of tension. One more invitation to kind of release. And then again, ever so slowly, maybe starting by reaching the arm first, moving ourselves back towards seated. Maybe turn your heart to face the floor a little as you come on up. We're actually just going to sit on the tops of our feet. So we're familiar with toes pose, which would be sitting on your heels with the toes curled under. In this ankle stretch, very much a yin stretch, you're just sitting on the heels, but the tops of your feet are on the floor. So you want to feel your feet. Sometimes as we sink the toes, your feet kind of sickle inward, toes towards touching, and you want to be mindful that you keep those little hooves kind of straight back. So that might mean you're settling your heels a little bit wider or a little closer. It's going to be different for each of us. We're all shaped differently at the hip. So knees are just in line with your hips. They don't need to touch, but you don't want them too wide where you're putting pressure into the sacrum from the tops of your femur head. So as you recline a little, palms to heart, a little integration through the torso. You lean back a little to lift the knees. Notice where you start to get the stretch. We're going to be here a good minute or two. I will give you a variation in just a moment, but give this a test drive. Maybe sort out the placement of your feet. Notice if the stretch is more on the outside of the top of the foot or in towards the big toe line. Some of the pictures that you'll see of people practicing this yin posture, their knees are way up to the sky. They are way reclined like boat. My ankles don't do that yet. And a confession is I really didn't take this ankle pose until maybe a week or two ago, so it's something I've added to the practice. It was really uncomfortable while doing it. I have to say that afterwards, you know, much later on in the day, I start to notice a difference, and I got a little bit of release, probably because there's a number of acupressure points you're sitting on, moving towards. But you can play with this, moderate the sensation so you're not taking back all of the tension you just released. The other option is to basically come back to seated where you are, right hand to right shin, move your right foot a little farther up. So you're still on top of the toes, but you can kind of lean over to the left, alleviate some of the weight, the pressure coming down on the poor hoof, and moderate a little bit better the stretch happening through the front of the ankle, the top of the foot, the tops of the toes. If this is not something you do a lot, then be patient. You'll have access to this video, certainly any time that's convenient to you, but you could also take this for the rest of your life. So there is no reason to force. There is a reason why we're doing it, of course. Check out the other side if you're doing the one-legged version. If you are starting to have some energy or emotion, an itch to move, and you're rocking the first variation we showed you, start breathing. Let that move through, but maybe see if you can resist the urge, that itch to move. See if you can linger just long enough to kind of investigate where it's coming from, the mind, maybe because you just feel a little agitated, fearful of the ankles, whatever it is, might be a little anxious. Notice, let it move through you, get another good breath wherever you are, and then gently come on out. So the main posture is going to be what Yin calls saddle, which is your hero's pose. Supta Virasana with the bolster. You're going to do the same thing you just did. Knees can come out maybe just a little wider so that your knees are still in line with your hips, but your heels are going to move wider than your sits bones. So they kind of sit gently poking into your biscuits. The bolster, when you sit back, so sit, make sure that's okay on your knees and all the goodies. Maybe you have to sit on a block or something, a cushion. But if you're using just the bolster, once you sit back, slide it so it's touching your sacrum. Not underneath the bum, but just because you want to leave room if you got some biscuits there. And then we're going to start to recline. You can use your forearms, might come down. Some of us are going to have to move the bolster a little bit farther back so there's room if you have some strong biscuits to kind of settle in. They might need a little extra space. The first breath or two might mean that you engage a little through the hips, press them, lift them, and then slowly settle in. It might take a few breaths to kind of release any holding. Know that you can stack multiple bolsters. You can have the bolster a block under the head, a block on top of the bolster under your shoulders. You could basically build yourself a sofa. But we're going to tap into kidney 1. So this is a acupressure dry needling point in the foot. You'll see Pamela kind of gently pressing with whatever's comfortable. I guess it would be maybe a thumb. If you look at your foot or feel your foot, you have the padding of your foot, the ball of your foot. And you kind of have a little round where your big toe knuckle is. Most of us have a little crease there. And then you have the other 4 toes, or whatever you have of them. Most of you know I lawn mowed my foot 2 years ago, almost coming up in August, so I nearly lost some of those toes, squished them right back on, and they still wiggle, so no judgment if you're missing some. Gratitude for all of them. The point where those 2 creases meet, so right below the pad, almost right on that second toe metatarsal. You're going to press gently. It could be slightly off, so you might be a millimeter or 2 too high or too low, but you'll feel a point of sensitivity. It might feel like a little itch. It might feel like a little crampiness in the muscle. You don't need to drive your thumb or your pointer finger through your foot. It's just a gentle pressure, enough so that you feel it, enough so that you can hold it and breathe through it. And this is going to help alleviate, kind of break up sort of shift anxiety, agitation, insomnia, even hot flashes, because the energy strongly descends excess energy. I guess it's easy to sort of feel, correlate how that would show up as hot flashes, right? Excess energy. Agitation. How that might render us sleepless. You might have hot flashes from agitation, who knows, not just period cycles or menopause. You could pick any number of things that have happened over the last 4 months, and it's enough to throw you into any of these problems, if you will. No judgment. So as you're holding this acupressure point, as you are holding this pose, letting gravity take over, kind of noticing all of the things, right? That is the yoga. The actual yoga isn't the physical posture. It's this practice of being present in the body, turning inward, noticing all of the things. It's the breath. It's this little meditation, right, where you have the focal point of your mind, concentration, right? We continue that moment of concentration for a little bit of time. It's called meditation. Meditation, by the way, isn't the ability to maintain that concentration. It's the invitation to bring yourself back. So when you lose it, the real practice is catching it when your mind has wandered and inviting yourself back to that connection. That's all. So maybe your mind has wandered, just bring yourself back, no worries. 4. Kind of surrendering here to the moment, to the body, to whatever it is, without judgment, just a whole lot of allowance. Right? Just the fact that you're still here after all these months, is a feat in and of itself. So give yourself a little bit of space. Be kind to this body that's going to get you day in and day out through all of the things the rest of your life. And notice all the things that you did manage to do, right? All of the things working in your favor for you to be here, taking this yoga class, gently moving yourself back to seated, taking your time. So tucking your chin, releasing the acupressure, engage your belly just enough to support, eking your way back up to get those little legs out from underneath you, feeling the circulation come back, wiggling some toes, rolling out the ankles as you move onto your back. We'll come right into Shavasana. If you like the banana. I feel like that's a game. You just say banana enough times and I don't know what happens next, but do your banana pose. Stretch out, hook an ankle over, perhaps find the elbows above you, a little C curve. Maybe you're just pencil rolling back and forth, who knows. It could be a nice little hot mess, a little heap on the floor, all good. Settle back to this body of yours with some gratitude. Keeping those little pressure points in mind. Some of these poses might have worked wonders on the body or your mind or your heart. And we'll be back tomorrow with some more goodies. So, toodles. We'll see you then.